So today we have had a lot of interest in this particular webinar, AI imagery, a safer way to showcase school life online. So we're going to be going through everything and hopefully be offering some top tips and advice for you. Okay, so we're going to do welcome, and we're going to talk about the Guardian article, why things really have come to a head in the weeks, what the concern is and why we're here, what actually is AI. We're going to talk a little bit about legislation. Claire Archibald, who's somebody that we've taken some advice from at Brown Jacobson, I'll be sharing her recommendations. Best practices covering Department of Education, metadata and alt tags. We're going to be talking through a solution with School Jotter, an AI image bank, using drone footage and cartoon style images, and then a talk through a solution for going forward, and then we'll open the floor up to questions if anyone's got any. Who we are, so we probably do all your school websites, so you probably know us for that. We're trusted by over 3,000 schools. We do bespoke and pre-templated websites. We've got an easy-to-use CMS system with full training and support, and we also do lots of other marketing, so prospectuses, logos and branding. Okay, so this Guardian article is the one that's kind of brought this topic to the forefront of everybody's minds. There was a school that was a recent target. The Internet Watch Foundation, the IWF, revealed that an unnamed UK secondary school was targeted in late 2025. Blackmailers used images from the school's own website and social media to create 150 explicit images and threatened to publish them if a ransom wasn't paid. Expert recommendation: child safety experts and the UK's National Crime Agency are advising schools to remove identifiable pictures of children's faces from their websites, social media accounts, or consider not using them at all. The AI threat: criminals are using artificial intelligence tools to manipulate face on photos of pupils found online, turning them into explicit child sexual abuse material to blackmail schools and individuals for cash. The government response: Jess Phillips, the Minister for Safeguarding, called the threat deeply worrying and stated that the government will update AI if necessary, following a recent ban on possessing AI models designed to generate CSAM. New school guidance: the Early Warning Working Group, the EWWG, issued new guidance for schools to minimise risks, recommending that they avoid publishing names or full names alongside photographs, use safer imagery alternatives, apply strict privacy settings to school websites and social media platforms, conduct regular audits of student imagery and update image consent agreements. The rise of sextortion: a broader crime of sextortion is escalated rapidly due to generative AI. The report removed service noted a 34% increase in blackmail reports from under 18s in 2025 compared to 2024. International gangs: the NCA noted that these attacks are often carried out by organised criminal gangs operating outside of the UK, with West Africa and Nigeria identified as prominent hubs. Early adoption: some institutions have already adapted. The Loughborough School Foundation completely redesigned its website to remove all recognisable images of pupils. Okay, so why are we here? How do we celebrate pupil achievement and school life without faces? Will removing imagery hurt our marketing and admissions? Is total removal an overreaction, or is it truly the only way to keep our pupils safe? What are the legal and logistical implications of managing this transition? Okay, over to Arthur.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, so what is AI? So I think we've probably all used various bits of AI tools. I guess most of us have used ChatGPT, maybe Claude, maybe Gemini, that kind of thing. And I think over the last 5 years, there's been a real explosion of different solutions that kind of come to the market, and there's new ones popping up every day, basically. But what they do, basically, and how they work is that AI has been trained on huge sets of data, covering everything basically on the internet, and then it uses that then to be able to predict and generate content on the back of that. So if it's something that's just text, it uses that huge bank of information, does some very complicated maths, and then uses that to predict. So it starts writing a sentence and then predicts the next word based off the word before and that kind of thing. And the same is true with images. So it can predict what should be an image based off the prompts and the context it's got in order to generate something new. And there's various different types of AI. So generative AI, like we're talking about there, a lot of people will have played with. There's very specific kinds of AI, so things like self-driving cars, or even things like your spam filter in Outlook, which are kind of very targeted versions that are using AI. And then machine learning, so being able to aggregate huge pools of data basically to use that in various different ways. And it's something we all kind of use, whether we know about it or not. So if you're watching Netflix on an evening after you finish school, and that's giving you some recommendations when you finish one thing, that's obviously looking at all the information it knows about you, your viewing habits, the habits of other people that are profiled to be very similar to you. If you're using your voice, you're using your Alexas, that's using AI behind the scenes there. And even taking a photograph with your phone, it's then enhancing that using bits of AI. Can you move on, Lucy? Yeah, and there's lots of good things about AI. So obviously, it's very useful to be able to create content very quickly. It's very efficient. So if you're doing repetitive tasks, if you can automate things, there's a lot of things it can do, a lot of heavy lifting on different topics. Very good for analysing large amounts of data. So if you need to look at some finance statistics, you need to do some processing of that. It can do that very quickly, which can be very, very helpful. And it's also very good at generating ideas. So if you need sort of a first draft of an email or a policy or something like that, that's kind of boilerplate, it can kind of do that for you. But there's a lot of problems that come alongside this. So obviously, this article in The Guardian and the school that was exploited, they'd created these deep fake images. So they'd use some prompts, create something that wasn't real, but would have caused, lots of issues on the back of that. It's a very useful tool for spreading misinformation. So from kind of just generating things that aren't true, you can imagine that being used for bullying within the school, obviously extortion of the school, propaganda generally, and there's a very low barrier to using these tools to do so. And then also reducing critical thinking. So I think most schools now have policies in place around using AI tools, obviously students, but even as adults, if we get too reliant on these tools to always draft the first version of my email or to do that kind of thing, then that's kind of taking away some skills that we're all developing just as we are. On to the next one. Okay, so this is just a little fun example. So what I've done here is I uploaded a selfie, just a selfie in the room here, and then asked it to generate some images of my trip to Antarctica. And took me seconds to do this, a couple of prompts. There was nothing particularly skilled about it. And 2 minutes later, I've got all my snaps from my trip, which obviously is completely bogus. I never went to Antarctica. So it was very easy, very quick. I used Gemini for this, but there are many services out there which are less well regulated. So essentially, when you use something like Gemini, there's guardrails that will stop you creating certain kinds of content. But from the technology point of view, the technology could create an image of me doing absolutely anything you could imagine, which could be good or could be bad. So you can see how that could then be used in quite negative ways. So UK Safer Internet Centre and DFE have been advising on the use of images on school websites. So a few handy kind of practical things that you can do. So no names policy. So if you're going to put a photograph of the students, the children, then don't put their name alongside that. So obviously we want to reduce the amount of different data points somebody could use to be able to pinpoint an individual directly. So if you're going to have that photo, avoid putting their name, avoid putting the class that they're in or the year group, and sort of avoid putting the locations, because obviously that's all information used to target somebody. Reducing the quality of images. So obviously everyone's smartphone takes amazing high resolution images with a huge amount of detail. But if you're going to use it on the website, obviously downscale that quite a lot. That's a win for performance, because it's not good to have big images loading, but also it reduces some of the risk around AI being able to parse that and create a realistic image of somebody. Thinking alongside on the GDPR side of things, parental consent. So obviously schools will get consent to use images of children. Probably you get that in reception, and then that kind of carries through throughout school life. But you need to not assume that's something that's going to last forever. So the best way to do it is to do it regularly. So it might be that you want to do it on an annual basis to make sure that you've got consent to use the images, and also to kind of limit that. So, you know, once a child's left, we see it on school websites all the time, but when a child's left, images can stick around for 10 years or more, because obviously a lot of schools now have their websites for 15-20 years almost. And it's kind of that idea that the consent that you got at one point isn't necessarily relevant anymore. By the time the child is learning to drive and is an adult, it's like you really rely on a consent that a parent gave many years earlier. And then the other thing is kind of more of a practical, technical thing. So when you take an image, there's obviously the image that you can see, but then something called the EXIF data. So we can see in the example here, this is the photograph that I took. And if we look at the yellow box on the left, I'll tell you some information about me. So you can see the phone that I had at the time, which is kind of, I guess, relatively neutral information, but we can see my latitude and my longitude. So even though obviously we know that phones have GPS, but even after you've uploaded that photograph somewhere, that data is still there in the image. So again, this idea of like minimizing the data points that you've got could be used negatively. We can see from those longitude, latitude, that can place that photo quite exactly. So we can see I'm on the border between Belgium and the Netherlands at the time. So something that we do on our School Jotter 3 platform, so if you're using that, then you kind of already somewhat covered here, is that we reprocess images and strip that. So we see on the dialog box there in the middle, that doesn't have that extra information in, so that then even if someone's got that image and they were trying to do things, we've reduced some of that kind of risk around that side of things.
Okay, so back onto me. So Claire Archibald is someone who's advised us in the past on GDPR, and she specialises protecting schools. So she couldn't make this event, but she wanted me to pass on some of her comments about the particular topic. As I say, she is an expert in her field. The one thing that she wanted to talk about was purpose and necessity. So schools should be thinking very carefully about the justification for putting photographs online. One of the fundamental principles of data protection is that processing personal data must be necessary in order to achieve your objectives. Even where consent has been obtained, that doesn't mean anything and everything could be posted. The question is to ask is, what is the specific purpose you are trying to achieve? And that makes it necessary to put those photographs online. Having a clear why behind every decision and engaging a proper thought process around it is really important, particularly when it comes to pupil images. Does what you are doing mean any risk is justified? Storage limitation. Just because a child's photograph has been put online doesn't mean it needs to stay there for years and years. These are young children who grow up and may not be thrilled to find their images still accessible online indefinitely. Schools should be thinking actively about retention, whether that's on Facebook, Instagram, and their own website or anywhere else. Just because you can leave something up doesn't mean that you should. Claire's personal bugbear is smiley faces being used on children's heads on school websites and social media. She finds it genuinely humiliating to children and would really question any school that thinks it's an acceptable approach. I would always ask them, would you be comfortable with that? Your body with a big sticker emoji over your face. I appreciate it's a personal opinion, but one I feel very strongly about, and I think it's worth schools and parents hearing it. A cautionary tale that she has told us is one that she'd seen, I think it was last year. a staff member who didn't have consent for a certain child to appear on the school website decided to put those children's photographs through an AI app and then posted the cartoonified versions online. They thought that they were being responsible by not using the real photographs, but what they'd actually done was run children's faces through an unauthorized third-party AI application without any proper basis for doing so. And to top it off, the children were still...
Oh no, she froze.
This is an example of the data protection pitfalls that arise when schools are trying to navigate the area without proper guidance. The intentions were good, the outcome was not.
Okay, so I'll just take over, and we've got 3 solutions here at School Jotter. And off the back of the Guardian article, we really saw an influx of schools contacting us. We probably had about 50 phone calls in one day from a range of schools, primary, secondary, independent, all requesting immediate removal of children's imagery off their websites. But obviously, where does it then leave schools? They've got no imagery to then, put on a text-based website. So what we've come up with is an AI image bank. So these images here that you can see on the screen are created predominantly from prompts into AI. So we're almost putting a positive on, the pros and cons of using AI. So all of these images are created from prompts. There's been no photos of children uploaded to create any of these, purely from a description that I've entered, and then I can just change the uniform colour. So one of the solutions that we've offered here is access to our image bank, which eventually will have hundreds and hundreds of images for you to choose from in different uniform colours, in different settings. So we're almost, discussing the negativity of AI and what it's actually done to, like we discussed earlier with a school for extortion. We're almost preventing that in a way by using AI as a positive and replacing all images on your website with AI image-led photography to prevent, identities of children being revealed, and also staff as well. I think staff's probably a good one to mention. So I'll just stop sharing my screen. I'll go to a website here. So you can see here, this is a website we've recently done for Whitchurch Primary. And they didn't have any imagery to send over to us. So I used our image bank for their new website design. And this, using AI image-led photography doesn't have any impact on how your website looks by not using real photography, like photographs of children. So you can see here as I scroll down, these are all AI generated photos. The website still looks amazing. Doesn't look any different as to, if you were using your own photos. So this is just to give you a bit of an example of if you are going down the route of removing, all pupil-led imagery, it won't affect your presence online, it won't affect your website. So that's one of the solutions we've got. The next one is, a lot of you may already be using it, is drone footage. You can be creative with this, like you can still be with photography. If you still want to use your own photos, just be creative. Don't do it head on. If you're doing awards, put the trophy in front of their face, or do it from the back of children. Just like drone videography, you can be really creative and do it from a distance. So do aerial footage. You could do, point of view from a child's day, but not use any children, to have the drone come in and swoop in through the school. So you can still show off your setting, you can still show off your classroom, you can still show off everything that you've got going on at your school, because we're here again to, we know you need to boost your pupil numbers. So it's a bit of a situation where you can still use all of these elements, but just be really careful and not use pupils to protect their identity. So here we just cover the points of replace all student-led imagery in homepage slideshows with expansive drone footage. So you can provide explicit instructions to, drone companies that we can also put you in touch with to make sure that all students' identities remain protected and unidentifiable. Filming techniques, so just what I touched on earlier. So you can do from a child's point of view, swooping in through the school, showing all the settings without having to use real children. And like I said, narrative concepts, so a day in the life. So that was just a bit of an option. If you do want to remove imagery, you can go into drone footage. The next one, which is a bit of a funny one because I'm sure we've discussed in the past, cartoon-led websites used to be quite a historical thing. So like back in the day, a lot of schools would have had cartoon websites. They were the thing to have. And we've almost done like a bit of a full circle. So schools now, we've had a few requests in the past couple of weeks to go back to cartoon illustrative designed websites. And again, we've used AI, not by uploading any children, purely from prompts to create a similar setting to where the school is, correct uniform colours. And you can see on these two examples, we've had one school that didn't have a lot of content, purely cartoon-led image as the landing page, and this one where it's still modern, still up to date, still looks current, but we've used a cartoon image as the banner. So again, this protects pupils' identities, it protects staff. Like Claire mentioned when we spoke earlier this week, you can almost go back down the route of children drawing pictures of staff as their headshots if you want to protect staff and pupils' identities. So there really is quite a few choices in terms of quickly removing pupil-led imagery across your website to then having 3 solutions that you could potentially go down. And we understand that every school is entirely different. You know, they might have their own opinions of the different things that they want to do, or you may still want to use your own photos, but do it in a creative way. Back of the children, awards in front of photos, in front of faces. So there's 3 options for you to consider, just from, you know, our recommendations. But again, everyone may be different.
Just to touch upon school website audits from a compliance point of view, this is something that we do also offer to schools. Actually, Arthur, who is with us, he's our DPO for Web Anywhere. We will provide an audit for the school website to make sure that everything is compliant from a DFE and Ofsted point of view, and those are £265, and we rag the report for you as well, just to make sure that everything is what it should be and you've got all the content on there that you need. And I think it was a bit of a thank you to everyone for attending, because obviously it's a topic that is quite a tough topic to tackle. So if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments section on the chat, or just unmute yourself and ask away. I don't know whether anybody has got any questions they want us to answer, or anything they would like us to clear up. Anyone got any questions? I'll just give a bit of time. Oh. Andy, I'll come back to you on that. I'm sure we can do something for you guys. Yes, we can share the recording after. We'll email you through a copy of the recording if you want to share that with anybody that couldn't be here today, one of your colleagues, or the people that obviously maybe couldn't attend because of different commitments as well.
Claire, I think Sale, hand up.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, yeah. I just want to check. Are you saying, because looking at the drone footage, there are children's faces in there. Are you saying because it's an MP4, like a video, that they can't access that? Is that what you're saying? I've been told as well that if rather than individual shots, it's group photos is better to have. We haven't got individuals on our website, but we have got group photos, and I was told it was harder for them to do anything with those. What's your advice on that?
Okay, I can answer those points, Claire. So just in terms of the video that Lucy had there, I guess kind of example of an aerial one, because it's such a recent thing, we don't have any examples of one that don't have the children in there as well. So what we're proposing to people that are now getting them done is to take more distant shots, kind of, you know, shots from behind and that kind of thing. So like there where we've seen faces, that's something that we would not advise now to do. In terms of the format and it being an MP4, that doesn't really make any difference. If there's anything that's visible on the website, it is something that somebody can get hold of one way or another. You know, at the very least, even if you had the entire thing locked down, you know, there's nothing stopping somebody using their phone to take a photograph of the screen, then processing that through AI to do nefarious things. In terms of group photographs, I believe that the actual image that was exploited in the school that was extorted, it actually came from a group photo from the football team. I think it was the females football team for the school. So it doesn't kind of give you any protection to that kind of thing through that route. I think that covers all the points, but happy to answer anything else.
No, thank you. That's great. Thanks.
Okay,
All right.
Annie has asked how long until you think all schools stop using children's pictures. It feels inevitable. So I actually asked Claire Archibald this question. I asked about kind of change that might be coming, and her response was, the government haven't even been able to kind of pass through the social media ban for under 16, so she doesn't think it is actually any time soon. Obviously, things can change very quickly. All we've got is the DfE guidance that we took you through. There's nothing else that's been set out as of yet, because I thought the same with that as well. In the AI image bank, would the background of the pictures be our schools or just generic pictures? No. So the good thing about that is, I think Lucy kind of explained, they can be specific to your school. So with the right prompt and school uniform, so blue school uniform, everything is specific and tailored to your school within that AI image bank, which feels really strange to even talk about because it's such an odd concept, but I suppose that's where we are. Is there an example of a school website which uses AI imagery? Yes, we can. On the presentation pack, if we send this out after this call, we can put some links to the ones that Lucy's mocked up. So it was the Whitchurch and it was the cartoony ones. We can send links of those ones that we've done. Is it relevant to remove location data when the website requires all contact details anyhow? Yes, because it might be that pictures were taken at a particular other time. For example, if staff on the staff galleries, if people have taken selfies and they've been uploaded, it can even give you their real detailed accurate location of where they live. So yeah, I think that is still a good point. How do you find out about what packages we have or who's our school representative? Basically, I cover the schools for the south. Sarah covers the schools for the north. So if you just contact us, somebody will get back to you in regards to that. Natalie shared Stanbury Village School. So they've done some nice aerial shots. I'm not sure whether you can share that one, Lucy. Yeah, we can send drone providers that we work with. I think Sarah's answered that one for you. Okay, what is the new DfE guidance for photos on school websites? So there is none. This is the latest, the latest advice is back from 2025, which is in the slides. And a lot was to do with if you're putting up a picture of a child, do not put the name of that child anywhere near that photograph or on the website. There's a lot of detailing on websites now where you're encouraged to, complete alt tags, which is good for people. So it'll be for people that are hard of hearing, that will show up for them. So definitely don't put the name of that child alongside that image. But the DfE guidance is also in the presentation. We can resend that through. Authenticity. Yeah, I think we all share concerns about authenticity because, AI is new, but probably in the risk of probability, you'd maybe say that you're going to be kind of safer not using images, but maybe Arthur can touch upon that a little bit more than I can.
Yeah, it's one of those, like, as a subject, it's actually an awful thing that we're having to even consider, isn't it? I quite like, I've got children, I quite like that their photos are on the website, they're on the socials, that kind of thing. So on one side, I like that. On the other side, I don't like the fact that those images could be used in bad ways, which could be harmful for my family. It could also be quite harmful for the school itself. I think in the example in The Guardian, the school, the extortion for the school was something like £50,000 the scammers were trying to get out of the school. So I think it is a very sad topic anyway.
Yeah.
And I think it's, as with everything in education, safeguarding is essentially the number one concern. So I think it's sad, but I do also think it's necessary.
Yeah, my children are on our school website and they're on kind of drone footage, and it does make you think twice as a parent. And I think probably some changes that should come in from a legislation point of view would probably be how many times those parents review those forms. So yes, you know, what happens when that child leaves kind of primary school, they go on to secondary school, like should their image be removed straight away? Should that be put in place? Because at the moment nothing is. But like Arthur goes back to safeguarding, I suppose that's the number one thing.
And like I say, I think you will find an influx of parents probably coming back to you and no longer consenting to the children being on the school website. I saw a question in the chat saying, how long do we anticipate until all of them take them off? Not everybody's going to do that, but it is making schools question, you know, the choices that they're going to make going forward.
Yeah, I think it's probably best to say as well, there's been no new legislation. We're trying to be on the ball here. We're trying to prevent anything bad happening to any of the school, well, any school really. So there's been no new legislative changes that you need to worry about. You don't need to take children off the website. It's just that we think some of this is going to be best practice in going forward. There's a question about, are videos and reels less likely to be able to be manipulated by AI? I thought this as well, Natasha. Arthur, what's your stance on this? Because I would presume that would be the case, but probably not.
No, there's AI. So there's two attack vectors there. So one is that AI videos, there is AI video processing, so that things can be manipulated that way. And essentially, videos are just a series of still images shown 30 times a second. So, you know, by having the images in there, they can all be exploited and used.
Yeah. Has anybody got any other questions they want to ask? I think it's been a really interesting topic. One that isn't nice really to talk about, and it's difficult to even believe that we're here speaking about it, because I wouldn't have ever predicted this a couple of years ago. What I will say is we've got another free seminar, masterclass if you like, after May half term, all about Canva and how to use that. So, you know, Canva is free for schools to use. If you need help creating posters, Lucy's going to be designing a poster. So, you know, if anybody wants any help or top tips and tricks, the next seminar that we do will all be about how to design a poster on Canva. And we also, if anybody's got any requests for anything else I'd like to cover, please do let us know, because we want to go back to doing like one of these webinars every month.